Well, hello. My name is Jeannie Shop, and I come to you from Pathways Towards Literacy. And I'm here to talk to you today about the upcoming book that's coming out in April titled Reading Isn't Optional: Fulfilling the Promise of Literacy for Secondary Students. I am the lead editor and a contributing author, and I would like to all of you to get to know all the amazing contributing authors of this upcoming book. So today, I would like to introduce to you to our author, Daryl Michel. Daryl, to begin, could you introduce yourself and share what you want people to know about you and the work that you do in secondary literacy?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, Jeannie, for inviting me to contribute to this very important text. Uh, my experiences here span about 32 years. I would describe myself as definitely an educator, author, researcher, and worked in a consulting space. I've co-authored two books, one student focused coaching with Jan Hasbrook, and one instructional leadership and student focused coaching with Dawn Brookhart. And I've also had opportunities to publish in journals, like the International Journal of Learning and Lesson Study, which had a focus on literacy in a secondary school, all subject areas represented. But also, I get a chance to consult nationally and internationally with groups like Learning Matters in New Zealand, with Doctors Pam Snow and Tanya Seri at La Trobe University, where they're running a randomized control trial study on student-focused coaching. My background is a PhD in education, school improvement as the area of concentration, and secondary literacy in particular. I have right now. Although I have my own consulting work at BA Change that I founded, I continue to work at the University of Texas at Austin's the Meadow Center for Preventing Educational Risk. So under the direction and guidance of Dr. Sharon Vaughn. So in that case, my secondary literacy work is supporting schools and districts in Texas in developing their multi-tier system of support. So in reading, mathematics, and behavior. So I get to coach and work with several districts as they're developing these. I've had the opportunity to serve in a statewide coordinator capacity with WestEd's reading apprenticeship framework for cohorts in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona around metacognitive conversations. And then even currently too with the New Mexico Public Education Department, we're providing coaching support for disciplinary literacy coaches who serve in statewide capacities. So the secondary literacy space, in particular the disciplinary literacy space, is right there up my alley.
Oh my gosh, it so is. I had no idea that you work at the Meadow Center with the incredible
Yeah.
Sharon Vaughn. Oh my gosh,
Hmm.
what an incredible career you have had. And so, what value you're going to bring to this book, right?
Hmm.
I'm so excited. So, what inspired you to, with your focus on this chapter, particularly, what inspired you, right, on this chapter of this book, and why is it so critical for improving secondary literacy?
Great question. In initially just trying to come up when you asked me to write a chapter on coaching, thinking, well, my work is in student focused coaching. I mean, and that with Jan initially, and then, thinking of titling this as well, the inspiration of student focused coaching to support literacy and learning is when I think of individuals who often in this coach role, I think unfortunately people often get the wrong impression like, oh, now I'm going to have a coach. Somebody's going to come and try to fix me or tell me what to do. And I try to position this chapter in a way to articulate that an individual with a title of coach doesn't have to be the person who's always providing coaching. I mean, in a secondary school, it'd be really difficult for someone to say that I know everything there is to know about all the subject areas and all the assessments and all the courses. I mean, it'd be nearly impossible. And so when I think even for for a secondary school with literacy, when we think about someone as a coach, well, that could be a department chair. It could be someone within the department who is an aspiring leader. Really, it could be anyone in the department who who wants to connect and collaborate with their colleagues to bring more of the research and evidence-based instructional methods and practices to their teaching that can ultimately impact student learning. So I think my inspiration here, I don't think I know, my inspiration here is I want people to understand that coaching can be any number of individuals. And I also want people to understand that coaching is an opportunity for us to share those research and evidence-based practices, whether that be in academic vocabulary, comprehension, fluency, writing. And there's so much knowledge that people need to have here.
I'm just going to follow up with that. So, what would you say? We've talked about this, what's the critical nature of coaching in improving literacy outcomes?
Hmm. I think one, when we really take the opportunities to ground our work in student data and evidence, I think then we get this real opportunity to target specific needs that we really need to address. When I first started coaching many years ago, and under the direction of uh, Doctors Robert Slavin and Nancy Madden at Johns Hopkins University, it was more in a technical kind of space. I mean, you were supporting people in the understanding of a program, how to implement, etc. However, over the years, when I really think and started connecting more and learning from Jan was when we ground our decisions in student data and evidence, it brings, I think, more ownership and more of an authentic dialogue with teachers as we think about improving literacy performance. So, if we were to take any end of course exam, state assessment, SAT, whatever it might be, and not just in English, but in any subject area, and try to really understand problems or concerns that students might be facing based in data, then we really have opportunities here then to work together to identify a plan of action in which now we can think about how will we continue to improve student performance and literacy when we know some of the specific areas to target. And it gives us an opportunity, I think, as well, when we're grounding it in student data and evidence, that then we can introduce to some individuals who I don't know the foundations of how to teach reading. I was never introduced to
Right.
syllable type, whatever it might be. It's like you get these opportunities
Right.
to really dive in and and really support each other in trying to understand through study, demonstrations, practice of how we can improve literacy in secondary students, but grounded in
Right.
evidence, not feelings and
Grounded
beliefs.
in evidence. Yeah. So, how does your unique lens or professional experience shape the insights you share in this book?
Mm. Well, I would say here, just kind of this that quick of starting in that role of a technical coach to now more of let's ground things in student data and evidence. If we were specifically relating this to secondary literacy and the specific book that you leading as editor is the need for the sustained professional learning on
Yes.
the part, I think, often of educators and administrators. So not about programs or products that, when I think of the experiences for me is that if we then do, as I mentioned earlier, ground our decisions in data and evidence, and that when we come up with some specific thing that we want to target, how do we then plan out some
Mhm.
sustained learning? So decades ago, for people who aren't familiar with Bruce Joyce and Beverly Shower's work from the early 1980s, is the amount of time it takes for someone to learn about and implement to successfully implement a new skill or strategy, not many, uh, the number of hours to study, like 20 to 30 hours of additional study, the time to see
Mhm.
demonstrations of what is this going to look like in my context, the opportunities to practice based on students whom I'm serving,
Right.
and then how we continue to work together. So my experience here in this space is once we can identify, if we took something like general academic vocabulary and you thought about, well, over weeks, months, what we could do to support our educators and our administrators in taking this deep dive into an area, how that can then take people back to apply. Is this in my core program? Is this in
Right.
intervention? Are we working together? So my experiences, I think, over time has gotten me to this place of too often there's one day professional development sessions that are sure to fail. Rather, how do we think about, again, grounding in student data and evidence,
Yep.
and then coming up with a plan that can support any of the subject areas? In an area like academic vocabulary can be a school-wide
Right.
focus, and a focus on writing could be a school-wide focus.
Yeah. So what would you say then? Because this chapter is foundational to literacy transformation. We have to have coaching in our buildings in order to improve reading outcomes in secondary space. So what would you say? Because we don't want to talk about all of your chapter because it is an
Mhm,
amazing chapter.
mhm,
What would you say would be one really super key
mhm,
idea or takeaway
mhm,
for school leaders and teachers to apply, after reading and discussing your
mhm.
chapter?
Well, administrators have to really understand that learning a new skill or strategy is often very complex given the nature of the many students whom educators are serving in a classroom, and that implementing something with fidelity isn't going to just happen with the one quick training.
Hmm.
And I also think, I know you asked for one, but I think the other thing that's so important here and goes back to the
Because we don't want
beginning
to give
is
it all
is
away.
is to think coaches don't have to have the title. So how do we get administrators to really think about responsibilities of what they're looking for in individuals who can provide that, um, the research and evidence-based instructional methods, create those responsibilities, and then make some decisions on who best
Yeah.
would fit in those roles.
So, how do you see then your contribution supporting stronger literacy outcomes for adolescents? And what do you hope readers understand about the the collective purpose behind reading isn't optional?
Mhm. Well, the contributions here, um, systems, the need
Mhm.
for effective systems are essential. The need for some consistent common routines are essential. I think of us, if you put yourself in the lens of a student who's struggling, and let's say they're a sophomore reading at a fifth grade reading level. If we were able to think of common routines and systems where these students weren't having to focus on all the different routines,
Mm.
but there was something common, you know, let my learning be focused on the content being delivered, not trying to
Mhm.
figure out everybody else's routines. Uh, the contributions here as well for this chapter is then also thinking about the development of a plan that can sustain sustained learning over time, uh, for the individuals who are supporting all students here. And also one final thing that I think is so important here, and this comes from some of the successful school reform research, Lee Li, um, in this work in 2017 of describing how important it is to start with a small pilot group of individuals to test something out. I think too often, and what you would get probably from reading this chapter as well. Too often we're fixated on a quick, let's do a new program, let's get a new product, let's start
Right,
a new initiative, versus let's really think about how we're building the capacity in the individuals who are in front of these students every single day. And
right,
let's think through how how anything new is going to benefit these students. It's going to meet their needs. And then
right.
over time, you can scale up. So,
So, Dare, you already introduced, you're doing amazing work. Where can people find you?
well, I have a Facebook page. I have an X page. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can learn more about me at uh, B the letter A, hyphen change, my website. So those are a few places, and then of course you're looking at some of the different conferences.
He's
I'm
there, and you
often
got two great
presenting at
books
many
on coaching.
conferences.
Mhm.
Yes, you can find those at Amazon and at Brooks Publishing.
Yeah, well, what a privilege to have you as a contributing author to this book. It's so critical, right? That we, as leaders, we bring in that element of coaching because everybody needs a coach, right? And you
Hmm.
can't grow in isolation. And
Hmm.
we need that coach to be that person that works between the instructional leader, and the work in the classroom. So
Hmm.
thank you so much for everything you've done for the field of education and particularly the work that you are doing at the Meadow Center for Adolescent Literacy. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, Jeannie.
Okay.